Hi, I'm Brian O'Donnell, Director of English Services at Zoo Digital, and you're listening to the Audio Description Narrators of America Know Your Narrator series, Beyond Your Narrator episode.
Today, we're really proud to have the president of NFB Utah and an appointed member of the Disability Advisory Council Office for the FCC, Everette Bacon. Thanks for joining us, Everette.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate you having me here.
Oh, it's really great to have you. Can't wait to hear what you have to share. Let's start off with asking you what you love about audio description.
Wow, that's a big
loaded,
question.
Huh?
As president of the National Federation of the Blind of Utah and also a board member for our national board of directors, I was, before I became a member, I was really into audio description because I used to work at Blockbuster Video. I used to be a store manager there, and I managed a store in both Dallas, Texas, and in Houston, Texas. And the store I managed in Dallas, Texas, just so happened to have the old video cassettes, the VHS audio description tapes. And that was really unique because it was the only store in all of Dallas to have those. And here I managed it. And it was kind of neat that you have this person with low vision at the time managing the one store that had an audio description. And so that became my introduction to it. And I kind of fell in love with it ever since and found that it really enhanced my ability to enjoy a film or a television production. So I've been a big believer and follower and user of audio description ever since. When we went to the DVDs, we had an issue where we had to wait a little bit for audio description to be included in the DVD. The advent of the Blu-ray DVD started to see more and more of the audio description track being available on those. And so I felt like I was a big proponent in that. I kept railing on Blockbuster Video as I worked for them that they had to purchase films that had audio description in it, because I had family members that shopped at my store and wanted audio description, and other blind friends that would let me know that they wanted it. And then when I became involved in the National Federation of the Blind, I had just moved here to Utah, and I had left my job at Blockbuster. And in Texas, where I was working, audio description was available at many of the movie theaters. When I got here to Utah, it wasn't available anywhere. So Utah did not have any theater that showed audio description, and that really just bummed me out, because my wife and I, we love to go to movies, and I would always use the audio description device. So I worked with the local theater chain here, which is Megaplex Theaters, and they're the largest theater chain in all of Utah. They have some 15 theaters, I believe at the time. I don't know if they still have that many, but they have quite a bit. They're owned by the same Larry Miller Foundation that owns the Utah Jazz and many other organizations and companies here in Utah. And so I worked directly with them, met with the CEO, talked about audio description, how important it would be to blind customers that go to their theaters. And he thought it was a great idea. So they made it happen. And we ended up getting audio description at all of the Megaplex theaters. And then Cinemark did a great thing and started making audio description available at all the Cinemark theaters. We don't have an AMC chain in Utah, but we do have Cinemark and the Megaplex theaters. And so now I've been enjoying audio description at those theaters for a long time. We had a brand new Broadway theater built here about 2 years ago. I think it opened in 2018. Before that, there was not audio description for the Broadway and musical productions that were coming through here in Salt Lake City. And so we knew this big brand new theater, major Broadway productions were going to be starting to come here through Salt Lake City, like Hamilton and others. And so again, the National Federation of the Blind of Utah, we advocated for audio description to be available at the Salt Lake, it's called the Eccles Theater. And now audio description is available for the Broadway productions that come through there. And we look to find ways to work with other entertainment venues and museums that can provide audio description all the time. And so it's something that's become a passion of mine, something I enjoy working on.
And it sounds like you've got it down to a science. I mean, with Blockbuster and Megaplex and this Eccles Theater and everything else that you've mentioned, it seems like your specific outreach has been direct and that these companies are receptive Can you talk a little bit about how that initial approach to those companies went for you from your experience and from maybe their perception to how they changed to including audio description?
Sure, sure. You know, being a leader in an advocacy organization like the National Federation of the Blind, or even the American Council of the Blind is another advocacy organization. You learn to advocate, and you learn how to do it. It kind of becomes a passion of yours, and if you enjoy it and you don't mind going and working with organizations, institutions, companies, things like that, it kind of relates to other blind individuals, and they kind of become passionate about it. And so what we would do here locally is we would, just about 3 or 4 of us would go and schedule an appointment with someone higher up. With Eccles Theater, I met with the Salt Lake City mayor. I got involved with the Mayor's Disability Advisory Committee, and I sit on that. We meet once a month, and I brought the issue up there. They suggested I meet with the mayor, and so I did. And once we met with the mayor and talked about audio description at the new Eccles Theater that we knew was opening, she was all on board with it. And so she got me a meeting with the director of the entire theater, and that director made it happen. From there, they understood the issue and thought it was something important enough to serve the community with. The same thing kind of happened with the other theaters before. You really try to go as high up as you can, because if you start, like, if you try to go up the chain of command from the bottom, you end up kind of in a bureaucratic red tape, and you don't know who's getting your message. So we always try in the National Federation of the Blind, we kind of start up at the top and go work our way down from there. and we tend to seem to get more doors opened and more opportunities that way. And that's kind of the approach we take.
Oh, that's great. And so your passion's coming through. It's no wonder that it's passed along to others who share your passion.
Thanks. Yeah.
I know you've mentioned this before on the NFB podcast and many other places. Could you also talk a little bit about some specifics within the film festival, the Sundance Film Festival, and some of the efforts there?
Sure. So that was something very recent that we've had. When I moved here to Utah, I knew about the Sundance Film Festival, but it was kind of this pie in the sky type of thing that blind people weren't really necessarily participating in. And so I'd been here a few years and had heard so many things. It's always the talk of the town every January when it comes around here. I got to go to visit with the Sundance Mountain Resort and talk with them about accessibility in general. They were looking to create accessibility for people with all disabilities, and they asked me as a representative of the blind community to come and speak with them about that. And from there, a door kind of opened. The head of the Sundance Film Festival was there, and the local, because Utah has an office in Park City, and so it was the local director from that Park City office. They were there, and we talked afterwards a little bit. Then nothing really came of that. I had worked with the Disability Law Center a lot. The Disability Law Center wanted to take on a project in the realm of assistive technology, and so I partnered with them. We drafted a letter to the Sundance Film Festival asking for them to look at bringing audio description to as many Sundance films as they possibly can for the festival. This was in 2018. It took them a year to respond to us, but after a year, they did respond. We met with them, and from there, this past Sundance Film Festival in January, they showcased a bunch of different films with audio description. I went and saw 2 different ones. One I want to make note of was Crip Camp. Crip Camp was shown and premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, and it was premiered with audio description. And so they invited myself and a few other members to come and watch the film. It was a packed house. It was before all the COVID-19 stuff. So it was really neat to be a part of that. And then we got to participate in an interview with the filmmakers, some of the stars of the film afterwards, and audio description was brought up at that premiere, and I got to talk about what we were doing for audio description and how the Sundance Film Festival, how we'd work with them to make that happen. And so it was really kind of neat. It just kind of worked with persistence. You know, sometimes you do have to be kind of persistent, and we didn't threaten any lawsuits or anything like that. We just more kept reaching out to them, and eventually we got where we wanted to go.
Wow, what a great story. And I love how you started with the venue
Mm-hmm.
and to get
Yeah.
to get this all the way to this I
Yeah.
can't imagine that, the Sundance Mountain Resort. I mean, you literally started at the top.
Again, I think it's the best way to go. It's the best approach. It usually starts filtering down.
Yeah.
Things always filter down better than they do up.
You've named so many great examples. Is there another example of a challenge that you found in the world of audio description that you're really proud that you overcame?
Some of the work that we're doing with the FCC is phenomenal. The 21st Century Communications Act passed back in 2011, and that was really something to be proud of. After that passed, though, we have really seen audio description advance in broadcast television and with theaters and all kinds of other entertainment venues. That, I think, is what I'm most proud of. I'd like to see that advance even more. So currently, right now, you have some 30 different markets now that are required to show audio description on the 5 major networks. A lot of networks have taken the stance of trying to get audio description available, especially most of the streaming platforms. Really proud to see Netflix and the work that they've done to make audio description happen for all of their original content. Amazon has followed suit. They're doing the same thing. Hulu now has stepped up and they're doing the same thing. And then you see some of the platforms like CBS All Access and so on. That's really exciting to see more of those adopt audio description and have it available for their original programming. So I'm really proud of that. I just would like to see it happen more. I would like to see home box office join the fray. I hear that there's rumors that they're considering it and they're looking into it, but we don't know anything more than that. I'd like to see them do that. I've been really trying to push for home box office to do that. I know that I think the American Council of the Blind has worked hard to push them as well. We would really like to see them step up to the plate. I think if they step up, then other platforms like Showtime and others will definitely follow suit. Disney Plus has done a great job. I forgot to mention them. And of course, Apple TV and their streaming platforms and showing original programming with audio description, pretty phenomenal to be a part of those.
And it seems like each of those streaming services that you mentioned and others are finding their own way to not only just have it, but also have their own kind of special angle on it. I'm thinking about Apple TV Plus having different languages of audio description, plus in Dolby Atmos sound. That Netflix has certain standards that they require from the vendors that they hire to provide the audio description. And do you find that those kinds of things make a difference in your experience as a consumer?
So I definitely do. I think it's phenomenal that they're incorporating audio description in different language formats. Would like to see more of that. I'd like to also see them consider offering it with both, because I'll give you an example. The film Roma that came out a couple of years ago on Netflix, I believe in 2019 actually, it was an Oscar-nominated film and got wide critical acclaim. That is only offered in the language of original audio description, which I believe is Spanish. It wasn't offered with English audio description. And that's something I'd like to see more of these streaming companies take on. And we've talked about that and are continuing to advocate for that, because it's really important that we get the audio description in whatever language that we speak and that we're used to. I think that's very important and would like to see that happen more with some of those produced programs.
You've addressed this in different ways too. Are there other examples of where you'd like audio description to go? in addition to more?
Sure. I think the big area now that we need to see it develop more, we need to see it more on the broadcast networks like the Home Box Office, Showtime, some of those things. We definitely need to see them step up to the plate. We need to see it happen more on all forms of television that are coming out. And then we really need to see some audio description be available for these news broadcasts and emergency alerts and things like that. That's an area that we could see improvement on. For instance, when you're watching some kind of special alert from, let's say, CNN or Fox News or whatever, the reporter is giving you information verbally, but there's a ton of information that is going on below on the screen, on the crawl or other kind of alerts that they flash up on the screen. And blind individuals aren't getting access to all of that through audio description. And we'd like to see that happen more. That needs to be an area of urgency for the FCC. They know about it. We've brought it to their attention. They are working on it, but we'd like to see them put more urgency in that arena on broadcast television. And then also YouTube, I think there's a VNMO and a couple other different formats that are out there that have video content on their platforms and don't offer any type of audio description. YouTube's the big example. There are just, there's thousands of new videos that are added to YouTube daily, and very few of them have audio description. And Google has not stepped up to the plate and offered a way on YouTube where you can add audio description. They've done that for closed captioning for folks that are deaf or hard of hearing. They need to step up for the blind of this country and do the same thing. And that's something we're advocating for all the time. And I believe those are some areas that audio description could grow, and would like to see it go in that direction.
One thing I'd like to ask, just a general approach when blind individuals who care about audio description talk about it. Do you find that when it comes to the companies that could provide audio description, the ones that might have some assumptions or false barriers to providing audio description, do you find that engagement as far as letting them know, hey, this exists, has been more effective than the lawsuits? And I don't want to dive into negative territory here. I don't want to go into any behind the scenes stuff, but there's an assumption that I have personally that as companies learn about audio description, that they recognize the value not only to the consumers or audiences, but also to themselves, that this is really a win-win.
Definitely. The National Federation of Blind's philosophy, we don't sue first. We always try to reach out, create, and open a dialogue. We'll even talk about examples that, with regards to audio description, that companies don't necessarily think of. For example, I believe, and many of us believe, that audio description can open employment or can get rid of and bypass some of the employment barriers that blind individuals face. And my example is what happens at work all the time. Usually you take breaks, staff members start talking with each other, and usually they'll talk about families, but they'll talk about what's going on TV and what's going on in the movies. For the average sighted individual who doesn't understand blindness and hasn't had much exposure to blindness, they don't know about how blind individuals watch a movie. They don't know about audio description. And so if they strike up a conversation with a blind employee, and the blind employee who's watched the latest episode of Breaking Bad with audio description and is able to talk about that episode with their sighted peers, that opens up a world that the sighted people didn't know we experienced the same way. And so I think that's critical that companies realize this, and this is something we try to hammer home all the time with broadcast providers, other entities that provide entertainment, that when we are included equally and brought into full inclusion, then it really changes everything for blind individuals and how we're perceived. It breaks down some of the misconceptions and stereotypes that have existed for a multitude of years. And so that's really important. We do still have to sometimes go into the legal arena, but it's always the last resort. We don't go there first. We try to reach out, try to open that dialogue, whether that be passing a resolution at our convention, or whether that just be our organization in general reaching out to a company and starting a dialogue. The legal arena doesn't come into view unless we're not getting anywhere. And then we feel like we have to move to that a lawsuit, but we don't want to do that first. That's never our goal.
And it sounds like a lot of your efforts, both within the organization and yourself, have been able to get some really great results outside of that. And I got to say again how those water cooler talks that you mentioned, that's connection, that there's a cultural connection there that keeps the conversation flowing in a way that sighted people have the privilege of. And it's great to hear how important that is, beyond just also including your own entertainment, but also the connections that you're able to have with others.
Oh yeah, I mean, when Game of Thrones was the talk of the town, blind people in America, we had to basically find a way to get the audio description from Great Britain, and we didn't get it at the night it was premiered. You know, we had to wait a few days, a week, and only us that are savvy, that know how to go find it, were able to do that. That shouldn't happen, because Game of Thrones was this big cultural event that, I mean, it was on every newscast had a story about Game of Thrones in the final season. Yeah. Everyone was talking about it at the time. And if home box office would have just offered audio description right at the get-go, blind individuals across the country would have been able to participate in that conversation. Many of us had read the books, but as many individuals know, the books hadn't gotten to where the TV show had. So that would have really changed things for us. And I think that's critically important. And that's something that has to happen, as much as cultural entertainment has become such a part of our life and lifestyle.
And it sounds like Game of Thrones was able to put together their own production and release it on time for sighted people. So it's definitely possible. It's not out of the realm of impossibility here. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Everette, with our audience?
I would like to say that if you have questions or complaints or thoughts about audio description, notify the FCC. That's the biggest thing that blind individuals can do, is send inquiries to the FCC. You can find out that information by going to the FCC's main website. I believe it's just fcc.gov. And you can go and you can send a complaint there. You can send a question there. That has to happen. So the more blind individuals and even sighted individuals that believe audio description is important, sending those complaints, what you want audio description to have and be available, the more the FCC gets those, that's kind of how our government reacts. So we have a reactionary government. We'd like them to be more proactive, but they're a bit more on the reactive side. And so they react to the more complaints that are coming from the public. So we need blind individuals to send in those complaints and those issues to the FCC so they can address it, they can make the changes that need to happen.
Does the FCC also receive feedback on things that our audiences appreciate and like and want more of?
Yes, they do. They sure do. And then they're willing to take that feedback. So again, any issue related to audio description you want to send the FCC, please do. And the FCC is required to report every year on the 21st Century Video Communications Act that was passed. They're required to report on that every year to Congress. And so again, the more complaints, the more issues that are brought to their attention, they have to report that to Congress. And so I think it's kind of a domino effect that can happen there. And so the more noise that the public can create with the FCC, the more power they have with Congress to make change.
Can people reach you either on social media or otherwise?
Of course. I'm on Twitter, so it's hashtag BaconEv, just like it sounds. I'm also on Facebook, and you can find my contact information by going to nfb.org. As a member of the board of directors and president of the NFB of Utah, all of my contact information is there. So you're welcome to find it there and reach out to me. I'd love that.
We've covered so much, Everett. Thanks so much for being a part of this.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me, Roy. And thanks for the great work you do as a narrator. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for saying so.
Okay.